Hi, my name is Roy Canterbury. I'm going to be hosting on Arch Talk 101, and we have a guest on the line with us, and we're going to talk archery for a little while and see what's going on. Just a little bit of note before we get started here. You can listen to the podcast on Spotify as well as go out to audible.com. You listen to it there. You can also go out to the Arch Talk 101 Facebook group. There you have the video there. You can also watch the video on my YouTube channel, Learn to Fix It Yourself. So, with that out of the way, now everybody knows how to watch and listen to what's going on. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Hey, thanks a lot, Roy. I really appreciate you inviting me. Happy to be here.
Introduce yourself and tell us a little something about you so our
Yeah,
listeners
sure.
and audience can get to know you a little better.
Sure. I'm Tim Minnich. I'm the principal and founder of Whitetail Forensics. We'll talk a little bit more about that and what that means. It's kind of this. We'll talk more about how that came about. And been archery hunting since I was 15 years old. Started out on a wing recurve back in the day, and have a passion and love for hunting, as well as a lot of other things outdoors, fly fishing, boating, kayaking, canoeing. If it's outdoors, I probably enjoy it, except for the crazy people that do skydiving and wing flying. I stay away from that stuff. But if it's
Yeah,
on the ground in a boat or in a stand or something like that, I'm all good.
I never could figure out why you wanted to jump out of a perfectly good plane.
I did that once. Freshman year of college, 6 weeks after an emergency appendectomy, I went up and did a little training program with our outing club at college. Jumped out, static line jump, round shoot. It was great, and just decided I'm not going to do that again. But one of my other friends that went, she ended up becoming part of an all women's competitive skydiving team, and she still does it to this day. And interestingly enough, she was the only one that got injured during our jumps. She came down with a more stand-up landing and stoved her back up pretty good. So she's the only one to get injured, and she's the one that ended up continuing and has been all over the world actually doing jumps and breaking world records with other skydivers for various formations. So
Oh,
uh,
that's cool.
yeah, yeah, it's kind of wild that she ended up there. But no, I only did it once, and that was enough for me.
Yeah, yeah. Once is enough, and I know there's a lot of people. I've talked to a few people that they just enjoy doing the skydiving. It's the free falling or whatever it is about it that they get and thrilled about it. But me, I'd rather shoot a bow or a gun.
Exactly. Bow, gun, fly rod, spinning rod, that all works for me.
Fly rod's not something I haven't tried yet.
What's that?
I haven't tried fly fishing yet.
It's interesting. I actually started fly fishing before I learned any other type of fishing. That's, in fact, I'll be honest with you, it wasn't till I was well into my probably 50s, early 50s, late 40s, early 50s, before I really started spin fishing. And I felt kind of like an idiot because, my nephew, my son, and these other kids that, started learning spin fishing, they're catching a lot of trout, bass, and everything else. And I just wasn't getting the hang of it because I fly fished. And and I like to do both. If there's a hatch coming off or something, I fly fish. If not, I spin fish. I'm not a fly fishing snob by any means. I'll use whatever I can put in my hands to put a trout in the line. Same thing with hunting. I'll hunt with my I'll hunt with my compound bow, I hunt with a crossbow, rifle, flintlock muzzle loader. I I love whatever I can hunt with. I love hunting with it.
Well, that's the nice thing about being an archer. You always have the option to shoot three different types of bows.
Yeah.
Being the traditional or the compound or crossbow, and um, then you can always go into muzzle loader. It's a little bit more of a well, about a little less of a challenge because you got a little bit longer range, and then you can go into shotgun and shooting slugs
Mhm,
and go into rifle, and there's so many different options. I know some states, Iowa used to be shotgun only.
mhm.
There that was their actually their muzzle loaders were their long range weapons because they had a bit longer range than your shotguns normally did, um,
That
especially with
was
some of the new loads that Hornady came out with. But now they've got some fire rifle seasons. But anyway,
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with my girlfriend Annette last night, and she's kind of new to understanding all this outdoor world and hunting. And I was talking about archery and the different types of bows that you can hunt with, and the various effective distances of each. And she asked a good question. She goes, "Well, as somebody that doesn't hunt, why can't you just use a gun all seasons and hunt that way?" So I was kind of explaining to her, the idea around conservation and hunting with a bow whenever the early season is, and whenever the doe are in heat and rut and fair chase. And we were having those conversations last night, and it's it kind of makes you think when someone actually asks you the question, why do you have an archery season? Kind of explaining not only from a conservation standpoint, but also just from a passion standpoint. And it's a different skill set and it's a different opportunity. And you see deer moving in the woods in a way that you don't see them moving in other seasons. And it was actually a fun conversation explaining that to somebody that was asking very good and innocent questions about why we archery hunt and why we get enjoyment out of it. So it's when you actually have to explain that to somebody, it really makes you think about, where did your passion come from? Why do you love to archery hunt? What's the best thing about it? Some of my best days in the woods and on stand, I actually didn't see a deer, but I had some other amazing animal encounters, on stand that you just don't get unless you're out there in the woods, you know, on stand with a bow. And that's hard to explain to people who just think we're nothing but cold, cold-blooded stone, hearted killers. How we have a love for the sport, and even when we don't harvest, how much enjoyment we get out of that time of field.
yeah, it seems like the most memorable hunts is one you didn't even kill an animal.
Yeah, yeah. My my dad, you still think of some of these stories. My dad watched all season long a young buck and a young Jake. They traveled together all through the fall. You didn't see them apart. And then one time the squirrel came up, went over a branch at the top of his head and pissed right down on his head. And and the weirdest one was he was up in a stand. My dad's had some interesting experiences, and he saw something and he turned, and it was just at that split second he turned, he ended up a bat hit the end of his broadhead. And unfortunately, the bat died as a result. But I mean, what are the chances that you could just turn with your bow and end up getting a bat on the end, hitting the end of your broadhead? But those are the kind of things that are non-deer harvest experiences that you just never forget for the rest of your life. I was talking to one of my field reps, Mick Alfonso out of New York, and we were at the Archery Trade Association meeting a few weeks ago, and he was talking to some folks about using WTF Camo. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but in 3 years of hunting, he's never been picked off except for one time, and it was a box turtle. A box turtle came into a bait. He was hunting in Ohio at the time, and that box turtle came walking in and turned its head and just looked straight up at him in the stand. He said it was like it was looking straight into his soul. And he said he'll never forget that the rest of his life. So he's gone 3 years without being picked off by a deer yet, but a box turtle looked straight up at him uh, in his stand. And those are the things that I think it's hard sometimes for people that don't archery hunt or that hunt. I'm sorry, people that don't hunt, but also people that maybe hunt but don't archery hunt, that you get very, very unique experiences that you may not get in rifle season or late seasons.
Yeah, sitting in the tree stand, I've had birds land on a branch in front of me. I could have kicked them. And that it was
Yeah.
that close. And
Yeah.
there is one time guy I go hunting with all the time. He's sitting in a tree stand. Here comes this bobcat walking down his trail, and he's just sitting and not moving. All of a sudden, the bobcat stops and looks up at him. The bobcat knew he was there, and he didn't move, make a sound or nothing. He was just watching him walking and had just seen him. And
I
um,
know it's funny, those experiences. I remember I was hunting on my brother's land one time in archery season, and it was when turkey was also in. So I heard something coming from the far right, very light sound, and saw something dark. And I'm like, okay, here we go. I might get a shot at a turkey because it was very, very dark black. And next thing you know, a black bear popped out and it came walking towards my stand. And it was so close to my ladder stand that I actually spread my legs while sitting in the ladder stand to look down between my legs at the bear crossing right at the ladder. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't get my camera out of my pocket. I didn't have time. Not even thinking at that time it was an older phone. It was pre iPhone days, but I had a phone I could have pulled right out and taken pictures. But I was just so shocked at the experience that I never even took an opportunity to get a picture. Because, a lot of times you tell those stories and you might as well be telling somebody you just lost a trout 38 inches long, right? Because they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, that doesn't happen, but it does sometimes. And of course now people are videoing their hunts, and everybody's got a camera, so more things are being caught like that. But some of those stories from back then, you before we had iPhones and everything else, I wish I would have an opportunity to get some pictures of some of those experiences.
Yeah, there's some really cool things that you see, and the your mind isn't going to forget it. The pictures help you remember them a little bit, but I know there was one time I was sitting in my tree stand, my bow was hanging up on a peg, and I'm watching the sun come up and the frost forming on my bow and on the
Yeah.
tree branches, and just all frosted. And I remember going home that day and going down the road, and there were a whole bunch of evergreen trees. They were still had frost on them, and it was like cool. Um, I,
Yeah,
I
one of
never
my
never seen an animal that day, but
yeah, one of my memorable experiences, and this was just so unique. I was in a box blind in Ontario for for the deer season. It was pretty cold, and I'm sitting in the box blind, and my eyes are focusing in front of me in the daylight, and there's a snowflake, but the snowflake's not falling. It's just out there in front of me, kind of just suspended. And I'm like, what is going on? And I could tell it was a snowflake. And finally, when it got, even more light, and I could finally focus, that snowflake was on the end of the thinnest possible spider strand. There
oh,
was still a spider web strand in the winter. So there was that single snowflake somehow connected to the end, very end, not like in the middle, the very end, almost like somebody put it on there, just floating out in front of me. And I thought this is one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen on stand, or I never even could have possibly imagined seeing something like that on stand. And that's part of the love and experience of hunting is like, some of those things are so unexpected um, whenever you're out that it's one thing we share, especially as archers, is kind of a different type of a passion for hunting at that time of year and the experiences that you have with animals at that time of year.
yeah, there's a lot of interesting stories, and that's one of the reasons I like to do this podcast. It's so much fun hearing all these stories, from all the different hunts that people are on, and
Yeah,
and it's just so cool, all the things that we see as an archer, in full camo sitting up there. You have sometimes you'll have, like you said, squirrels don't recognize you if you're in full camo. They can't figure out what you are. You
yeah,
just don't even exist to them.
yeah. It's fascinating. One of the things about kind of starting this company is I love it that I get hunters sharing their stories. And I had a hunter come up to me at the NRA Great American Outdoor Show starts this Saturday in Harrisburg, Saturday, February 1st, and runs through the 9th. This has been my fourth year exhibiting there with my WTF Camo. And I love hunters that come back that bought the camo the year before. And I had one young guy come back. He goes, "You're just never going to believe my experience. What happened to me?" I'm like, "Give it a shot because people keep coming and telling me stories." And he's like, "Yeah." He goes, "I was walking out in the field, and he goes, I was walking slow." He goes, "But it was daylight. I'm walking just in a regular field." He goes, "And I noticed some doe that were coming in the woods. So I just froze." He said, "They come out in that woods come out of that woods. And he said they fed and walked within 25 yards of me standing there, and they'd look up at me and just go right back to feeding. He goes, I've never experienced anything like that in my entire life with whitetails. And I said, the greatest thing about that story is it's true. And I've had a lot of other hunters tell me stories just like that, where deer just can't identify you as a solid object wearing the camo. I said, so the greatest part is it's true. I said, the worst part is you sound like you're 100% full of shit when you tell somebody that story, because we all know that's not what happens. But, I keep hearing story after story after story. I have, it makes, I have so much fun during archery season, whenever somebody will send me an email or a text message or a message on Facebook Messenger, and they'll tell me about their experience and how they couldn't believe, what happened to them. And they know there was no other way they could have, had the opportunity they had with any other camo because of prior experiences. And I love when they share these different stories with me. I had one guy, his name's Stu, and he bought the outfit in 2023, hunted with it that fall in 2023. Then he came by and stopped at the booth this past February in 2024. And he said, man, I just had to come and tell you, he says, boy, you all just did it right. He goes, I had the best archery season I've had in my life. He goes, I saw more deer, more buck, more quality buck. He said, at one point I had 23 doe feeding all below my stand and all around me. And they'd look up and look around. He goes, not a single one picked me off. He says, I just couldn't believe it. So, and the funny thing was when he looked at it at 2023, he's like, you know what? It's different. It doesn't look like camo, but I'll give it a shot. It's great to see those people come back the following year and share their stories. And that's kind of been a big reward of doing this, is really hearing hunters share their stories about what they've experienced wearing WTF camo. So it's been a lot of fun with that journey.
So what got you started in designing camo?
Oh, so it's one of those things, when you hear people talk about, how did you get the idea? Um, I mean, like I said, I've been archery hunting all my life, and you know, yeah, I hunted with what everybody, was hunting with, one of the, nature type patterns. And sometimes I'd get picked off even when I wasn't moving or the wind was in my favor. I'm like, dang, how did that doe look straight up in the tree and pick me off at 40 yards away and start stomping? Like I just didn't get it. Well, I was at our local Cabela's here in Hamburg, Pennsylvania in 2013, and I was standing on the second floor. It's the largest Cabela's in the country. I was up on the second floor, and back at that time, they had a camo display in the middle of the store. So about 40, 45 yards away from where I was standing. And I was looking down and I'm looking at all the camo patterns. I'm like, you know what? I really can't tell one from the other. They just all look like dark blobs to me. And it's the first time I ever asked myself the question, I wonder how deer see camo. Like, what do they see? And why am I getting picked off? So at the time, I have a full-time job. And at the time, it was an incredibly busy time for my full-time job. It was a change in a part of healthcare, information technology, that just was having me on the road 3 to 5 days almost every week. So I tasked my son Brendan. He was doing freelance video and photography, so he wasn't full-time. So I tasked him with kind of researching all the scientific papers he could find on deer vision. So he did, and when he got through all, what the wildlife biologists wrote, and read papers where wildlife biologists examined deer's eyeballs at the molecular level, because they understand how our eyes work, and they were able to apply the same science to their examination of deer eyeballs. And we learned, they're red-green colorblind, which kind of had heard that. But then what really came as a shock is during the daylight, their vision is anywhere from 2060 to closer to 2100. And they sacrifice that precise vision in daylight to be able to have outstanding night vision. So one of the wildlife biologists wrote that a deer doesn't need to count the hairs on a mountain lion to know it's a mountain lion. They focus on silhouettes. So that was a little bit of an aha moment to say, you know what, I think what's happening with most of the camo in the market is that deer, and we're talking all species of deer that have the same type of vision, that they really are focusing in on the silhouette, much like you see that hunter silhouetted in your background there.
Yeah.
And they see the silhouette and they see it's a large silhouette and it triggers their, that's a predator instinct. So I kind of tasked my son with the idea of throwing away everything we know about camo. Like, don't presume anything about what camo should look like, and instead focusing on a way to disrupt the human silhouette in a way that a deer or any other big game animal cannot identify you as one solid object. And that was actually a 5-year process. He started in early 2014 and then came up with finally a design in 2019, which is the WTF Camo pattern that we have. And by the way, a lot of people always say, WTF, but the company's Whitetail Forensics. So, called the camo pattern WTF Camo. It's catchy and memorable.
Yeah.
There was a reason why it ended up being WTF Camo. So once he came up with the pattern, then I'm like, I think you have a winner there. What he was doing is he was modeling the pattern in Photoshop at scale on a human figure, and then placing it in all kind of outdoor settings and applying a red-green colorblind filter. Say, well, let's see how a deer would see it. And when he finally come up with this pattern, I'm like staring at this person in this picture and looking at the computer monitor, and I'm having a really, really hard time tracing the edges of the hunter, like tracing his arm, tracing his leg. And I said, I think you got it. And then I found it took a while to find a clothing manufacturing partner, and I ended up partnering with a company that's been making camo for over 30 years. And they're licensed to make over 100 different camo patterns. And they really kind of became my, I'll call them mentors and advisors on clothing. And I wasn't happy with any fabrics out there. Um, so they actually created a brand new type of fabric for my camo jacket and pants, for quietness and side to side stretch and durability. And we have an exclusive on that fabric. And then it was kind of fun going through the process of designing clothes and saying, you know what, I hate the way my pants cut into me whenever I start layering up or have too many of those little Drake cherry pies, the little square ones.
Yeah.
So, so things like I want a flexible waistband on my pants. So that's really what started the journey. And timing is, we put in the order for the clothing in December of 2019. It was supposed to be available in June of 2020. Well, we all know what happened. COVID
Yeah.
hit. So the clothing showed up at my doorstep Black Friday of 2021. So it was a year and a half later until I finally got the clothing and launched. So we've had 3 hunting seasons now, 2022, 2023, and 2024, with WTF Camo. So that's how the journey started.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I think I have your website up, wtfcamo.com.
Yeah, that's the one.
So let's go ahead and share it, and I'll let you go through and see
Sure.
what's going on with it here, and
Yeah,
let's
there's a
see if we
couple
can.
pictures there right from the start that kind of highlights it.
There we go. You should build.
Okay. Yeah,
So you kind of
as
talk
you
us through
scroll,
what we want to do, and
you can scroll down a little bit there to where it gets to the products. We'll go past the video, scroll down. Okay, once you get those products, there we go. So the far left is actually the jacket, and then the next one's the pants. But I put some photos of hunters wearing WTF camo instead of just the jacket for the very first photo. Catches your eye a little bit more. So there you see, you know, 2 different hunters in a saddle in different environments. Actually, the one on the left, uh, that is in Missouri, and then the one on the right, that is in Georgia. And yeah, as you go through there, you kind of get to see some features about the pants and more pictures as well of what it looks like. So the pattern is higher contrast. So it's more contrast in it with those 3 colors, and it's also a larger scale. If you go click on the jacket for a second, um,
this one here.
the one on the left.
Oh, the pants.
On
Oh,
the
okay,
left.
jacket.
If you click on that and then click on that second picture there on the left. So this is what really trips people up. When they see what the camo actually looks like, honestly, most of the people will come up to the booth and say, what the F is that?
Yeah.
And then they'll start looking at some of those pictures that are on here. And I say, well, okay, yeah, that's the pattern and it's a geometric pattern. And you're right, it doesn't look like any other camo on the market because we really designed this for deer vision, not human vision. And we really designed it to try to create a situation where the deer cannot identify you as one solid object. And if you go to that third picture there, yep, that's another good one. So I had a lot of hunters tell me that, once leaves went off the trees, a lot of them had to change stands because they were silhouetted or profiled against the tree, and they had to abandon certain stand locations. Now I have hunters tell me um, that, they're able to hunt almost any tree. One of my hunters, Zach Sexton out of Ohio, he basically tells people he shot his 186 out of a telephone pole. It was a it was a small diameter, about a 10-inch diameter tree, and the top of it had blown off. So there was no limbs. He had no cover at all. And he put his climbing steps up there and hung a stand. So he did that instead of a saddle. He hunts out of saddle, stand, hunts ground. He does all kind of hunting. And actually, the top of his climbing steps were higher than the full height of the base of that tree that was left. So he is completely open and exposed, and he was able to get a 186 in Ohio. Had one of my other field reps in New York, Jeremy Petrosowski. Forgive me, Jeremy, if you're listening to this with my pronunciation of your last name, but he messaged me and he said he just killed. He sent me this beautiful 4.5-year-old buck he shot, and he said he basically killed it out of a toothpick. He said that thing was 8 inches on diameter, and he set it up for a sun because there were a lot of doe moving through there. Well, then um, his there was a buck that he had patterned, and he's like, it was the only place I could hang a stand that was near where this movement was. So he basically hung a stand in this 8-inch diameter tree. The buck came in from behind him. He was slightly silhouetted. The buck and doe came in, they looked up, they walked right by him, and he was able to shoot it as it was quartering away. And he's like, there's no way. In fact, he even wrote, any self-respecting doe would have picked me off right away on that stand because I was completely and 100% exposed. So I have hunters that have deer that look straight up in the trees and then they'll look left and right, like they don't see them, and then go back to their business of what they're doing. And that's the story I hear most often. What hunters describe most often is that it's as if the deer is looking straight through them. And that's how they really describe it, is that they'll have deer look up and then the deer just goes back to what they were doing. And even in that picture, you can see it's kind of like you're looking through the hunter versus at the hunter. Um, so we're really, I'll be honest, Roy, it was a pretty big risk because this was all designed on the computer. My son all designed it and modeled it in Photoshop, and we think we had a winner. But then it came to, then I'm taking money out of my own life savings and everything else to be able to create this. And it was a big step. And theoretically, we thought it was going to work. And it actually really has exceeded our expectations and hunters' expectations relative to the performance in the field. So we're really excited with how it's been able to be effective for hunters. And um, you'll see there's a lot of little details there. Even you can see in the fleece lining, there's little deer hooves in there, which
Yeah, yeah, I
kind
seen
of tie
that.
in. And you can't see it on that jacket, but the zipper pulls also have a little deer hoof uh, embossed on them.
Oh yeah.
There's all kind of little details that, I wanted to create a really high quality garment. And that was really important to me because if I was going to do this, I wanted somebody to get get the jacket, get the pants, and just feel like, hey, this is just an outstanding garment, and really high quality. And that's what I get back. People buy it for the pattern because they can see how the pattern would work, but then they're always shocked at the quality. In fact, after 3 years and 2 months, I still have 100% five-star reviews on every product
That's good.
out there.
For those of you just listening to this, you're going to have to go out and catch the video to actually see, how good this actually looks. I looked at brought up the one for the hunting pants, and we have good color vision, and it's I can see where part of his legs are, but his shoulders and head disappear in the picture.
And
And
he's actually holding a recurve bow, aiming kind of out to the left towards us. And it's hard to track his body and his head. And part of the reason that you see his around the waist there, now you can see a little bit better. He's got that bow there up against the tree.
yeah,
Um, but you notice you can see his saddle. Well, we kind of fixed that problem. We partnered with Ape Canyon Outfitters, and they are now making saddles in our WTF Camo pattern. So now the saddle is at the exact same scale. The saddle and the back band is at the same scale
oh
as
yeah,
clothing. So it's great now when you look at now he's not wearing one because they just got released this past
right.
fall, but now we have it in on the Ape Canyon saddle. So in fact, uh, Chad, who is in that first picture on the jacket, when they come out with that picture, he's like, dang, he goes, the only thing you can see are my boots in the saddle. So we got the saddle taken care of, and we got WTF Camo on the saddle. Still trying to work with some boot companies. Would love to see WTF Camo on boots because my boots are shot. I need new ones, and I don't know if I can wait till I get my camo pattern on one or not, but I definitely would love to see the pattern on boots as well.
Yeah, in looking at the picture, what I caught attention to was the saddle he's sitting in.
Yes.
The other, and a
Yep.
little bit his legs, below it, but from the saddle up is real hard to see. And
Uh-huh.
um, now you might, for those that don't want to get another boots, just get some boot covers that you can put on
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
to
that's
cover
I
up your
actually
boots.
I talked to Ape Canyon about that. They're possibly considering making a gaiter in WTF camo that would fit up over the boot. But yeah, it's kind of funny. Whenever one of my best friends is a guy named Barry Noss. In fact, he took vacation. He's going to be with me at the Great American Outdoor Show all next Monday through Friday. He took vacation to help me out. So the first time he came to look at this pattern and get a look at it, uh, they were all excited to see it, and his youngest son Kyle was excited too. When Barry went back, Kyle asked his dad. He goes, "So what do you think?" And he said, "I think Tim's going to lose his house." So that was the vote of confidence I got from one of my best friends. But then, but he's like, "Hey, he's my best friend. I'm going to wear it." And as soon as he started wearing it that first season, he started calling me up like every night. He's like, "You wouldn't believe what happened." He goes, "I was looking for a tree to hang my saddle in, and I'm looking around, and this 8 point comes up over the ridge and comes walking down by me." He goes, "I'm not against the tree. I'm nothing. I'm just standing out." He goes, "That buck walked within 18 yards, but his bow on the ground." He said, "That buck walked within 18 yards and would stop if he was feeding, and he'd look left and right like he never even saw him at 18 yards away, just standing in the open." And Keith Rutt, he's with Raising Arrows Outdoors here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Him and his partner Andy Black, they were the first two to ever wear the camo, even before me. They actually wore my samples that I had. So I thought it was really funny. That was in 2020. So in no, in 2020, they had the samples. And what was funny was I was up in the tree stand wearing my old Mossy Oak breakup, and Keith and Andy were out hunting in WDF camo, and and Keith called me up. He goes, "Man," he goes, "I got two stories for you. One was, just walking through the woods, jumped up four doe, jumped up, right out in front of them. He said, I'm just standing in the open in the woods. They stand up, they look all around, don't see me, and they just turn around and walk off. And then he had another experience where he was walking in the cut part of a cornfield, and there was still some standing corn. He was about 15 feet off the standing corn, and he's walking, and next thing you know, doe come up over the little hill right straight out in front of him, about 40 yards away. And he's just standing in the open cornfield, about like I said, not too far from the standing corn, but apart from it. And those doe just walked up, fed while he's standing there, fed around, and then ended up turning and fed right back down over the other side of the hill. So, the greatest thing, Roy, about this is that every hunter that wears it starts to share stories about it. Like they just can't believe um, how it works. The tough thing is, right now it it it's still I'm growing. I've been growing, pretty well over the last couple of years, but it's still hard when people look at it to say, "Oh yeah, that's I get it." When you just look at it, hanging on a rack or, at the trade show, you really have to begin to look at the picture. So I have a
Yeah.
slideshow that goes through picture after picture that actually, my hunters, my field reps and other hunters took and sent to me because it's not until you start seeing the camo through a deer's eyes that you begin to understand, why they're not able to really key in on you, um, whether you're on the ground, in the saddle, in the stand, whatever. But as you can imagine, it's it takes a little time for someone to finally accept this. Some sales I made at trade shows last year were from people that looked at it the year before and then came back to buy it the following year after, kind of watching Facebook and listening to stories and such. So the adoption is a little slower, but every hunter that has it has stories to share and experiences of how they know they would have been picked off had they been wearing any of the camo in their particular situation.
Well, the picture with the pants, the very last picture, if you scroll down, um, has a guy standing next to a tree behind some brush, of course, and I can only make out parts of where he's standing, and
Mhm.
that's with good. And that's not the bad eyesight that the deer have,
Right.
So, um, yeah, even zooming in, you know, I zoomed in as far as this let me zoom in, and
Yep.
I can see something up here at the top, like where his head is or something. But that's really about all you can really make out. So it's
Yeah.
one of those that, this looks like it's going to be a really good camo pattern. And
Yeah,
um,
we've sold about 700 suits so far, which doesn't sound like a lot, over 3 years, but just starting out and being kind of starting out as just a father-son company and being self-funded, um, you got to start somewhere, and,
right.
and we're continuing to grow. And I, it's one of those things where I think it's going to take a little bit longer, but as we kind of move through that process, yeah, you can go ahead and click on that, see that's what the
Yeah.
saddles look like.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but
If that one picture had this saddle on, I wouldn't even seen, because that's what stuck out was the saddle he was sitting in.
yeah, yeah, and I do have some hunters getting me some pictures of themselves in the saddle. So right now I just have a picture of my mannequin in the saddle, but we're going to get some hunter pictures in the saddles
Yeah.
as well. And
Well, and you got some backpacks too, looks like.
yeah, and the quiver, that's their quiver. Yeah, we actually met for the first time at the Great American Outdoor Show last year. They were a few aisles over from me, and we're both Pennsylvania companies. They're
Oh yeah.
Western PA, I'm Southeastern PA. And what I really liked about working with them is their kind of, parent company, so to speak, is a company called Rock and Rescue. And they've been in the rescue and ropes business for decades. So um, pretty much, I just learned this one a couple weeks ago. All the smoke jumpers that jump out, that rappel down from helicopters and stuff
Right.
for fires, every single one in the country is using their gear. Navy SEALs are using their gear. It's used by rock climbers, fire and rescue, SWAT, DOD. In fact, AJ Winnell, the president of the company, showed me some pictures. This is so cool. Wish I could do this with my camo, but he gets to do it. So they'll have at their local air base in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, they'll get a call in for an order of, rope equipment, carabiners, what have you. And then they'll go meet him at the Butler Fairgrounds where Trump was shot, actually. So AJ will drive the SUV out and go out, with his SUV and get the duffel bag of gear out. And in comes a Black Hawk helicopter, or oh my gosh, I'm blanking. What's that? What's the other aircraft that can be either helicopter or plane? I always forget the name of that
Oh,
thing.
the V-22 Osprey.
The Osprey. So
Yeah.
they'll either come in an Osprey or a Black Hawk and land there in the fairgrounds, and a guy will jump out of the aircraft or helicopter and come and retrieve the duffel and go back. And he said it's really cool because there's people out there like walking their dogs and going for walks around the fairgrounds and wondering what in heaven's name is going on. But I really liked them that they were partnered up with a couple other saddle companies and providing all of the rope gear. And then when they stress tested the saddles, they failed. And the saddle companies were not remedying those failures. So they said they really can't partner up with anything that they don't feel meets their safety standards. So they decided, you know what? We're going to make saddles ourselves. And that's how they started in this business, was really a few years ago, deciding that um, they're going to take their experience in the ropes, rescue, all that, and create a saddle. And we were a really good partner, created a really good partnership there, and kind of excited about continuing to work with them. That's my hat collection. I got some casual hats as well as my regular camo hat. Uh, my son, Brendan, actually designed everything. He designed the camo pattern. He designed the logo. He designed these hats. That one in the green there is what we call the cardiac arrest deer. So it's meant, the deer has a heartbeat until you got WTF camo on and then they flatline. Um, so yeah, in fact,
I like that hat, the camel hat. I wear
yeah,
hats all the time.
yeah. And that's Andrea Huffert. She's one of my Oklahoma brand ambassadors. And they had sent me a picture of her wearing the beanie. I'm like, that is like the coolest picture with the beanie. And plus, that hair color to a deer would be a shade of gray. So it all works.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. So to a
because I don't see
deer,
that color.
yeah. So to a deer, all shades of red, pink, orange are different shades of gray. And then shades of green appear as dark shade, various shades of yellow to a deer. So the other thing is in these camo patterns that have all these different flashy, green leaves and everything else, it just looks like yellow to a deer. So when we look at the patterns that have precise and fine detail in them, uh, find somebody with 2100 vision and put them 30 yards away, 35 yards away, and ask them what, if they can pick out the leaves and branches and spines on the leaves. Well, that's kind of what a deer sees. So the other camo patterns to a deer just look like a dark blob. Um, and that's what we tried to solve. That was the one thing we really tried to solve with this, was really um, disrupt that silhouette so that a deer can no longer identify you as a solid object. My buddy Barry that I was telling you about, him and his
Yeah.
daughter Carly, she's in her mid 20s. They were out hunting and they were actually sitting on a couple of rocks watching a trail. And a young buck, and they had this on video. He videoed this on his phone. A young buck was coming to the trail and they were watching him come in. He started feeding on what looks like like he was gnawing on what looked like some blueberry, low blueberry bushes in front of him. And that buck is gnawing on these things just a couple feet away from them. And then that buck leaned in and sniffed her hair and could not figure out what they were, and leaned in and sniffed her hair. And it sounds, again, it's another one of those stories that sounds like complete and utter bullshit, except for the fact
Yeah.
that he filmed it on his phone. So those are the experiences. Those are some of the traditional bows. Andrew Kimple uh, is a bowyer, and we have those are the limbs for the ILF bow and the what he calls the WTF Camo riser on the left hand side. So we have both recurve and longbow limbs, so you can get the riser or the limbs. And then we're actually at the Great American Outdoor Show. We're launching. The picture's not on here yet, but we're launching a an actual longbow, one piece longbow that's finished to look exactly like those limbs there. So we're launching that longbow as well. But because traditional archers, being the fact they need to get in close, and they also a lot of them hunt from the ground. The camo pattern works great, and then they can also extend that onto their bow, so they're not creating any kind of a silhouette on the bow. The Let's Go fishing baits, you can pop on the bass baits. There's a young man, his name is Wolf Steinhauer, and he's actually one of my youth field representatives for the camo. In fact, last year he shot and self-filmed a 144 whitetail buck, I believe, here in Pennsylvania. Really nice buck for PA for sure. So at 15
Yeah.
years old, he shot it and self-filmed it. And during COVID, when he was 13 years old, since they weren't going to school, the boy loves to bass fish. So he's doing a lot of bass fishing. And then he started to research how he could recycle his plastics because he was going through a lot of them. Then he
Yeah.
realized he could just start making them. So he started designing and molding his own baits. The one there on the left-hand side, Will's Wonkas, that's actually his own mold design. It's kind of a hybrid tube um, and a little bit of a skirt there. So he actually makes all these himself, and the boy catches a lot of bass. I'll tell you that. And I don't know where this was when I was a kid, but he basically went to a hybrid school model. So he actually gets all of his schoolwork done at home Monday through Wednesday, and then he plays sports, and he'll have maybe sports practice or games on Thursday and Friday. But Monday through Wednesday, he does school, and then Thursday and Friday hunts, fishes, makes bass baits. Uh, I'll tell you what, the kid's 16 now, and he's got it all figured out. That's for sure. He puts a lot of time in hunting. Um, so he's a great kid. He's actually going to be at the show helping me out for a day or two in the booth next week. So really happy about that. So that's why you see bass baits in the middle of a camouflage clothing, is I just kind of wanted to get him a little bit of a start and exposure, um, little bit of a start and exposure. And then that's a couple of his buddy then makes trout and panfish baits. So we got some of those listed on there too. So him and his buddy kind of partner up. So Will makes the bass baits and his buddy makes the trout baits. They'll go set a stand up at local events. Um, he went out to a hot spot for a first day of trout season. They set up a stand. We're selling baits out there. So the kid's a hustler. It's a hard worker.
Yeah, that's kind of nice because give him a little help and it's something else on your website too. It's a
Yeah,
lot of us bow
yeah.
hunters still like to fish, so
E-
why not?
Exactly. The only thing I don't do that my son Brendan has started doing is just, timing and everything. I've never really started the waterfowl hunt yet. I got a gun for it now, but I want to kind of start doing some waterfowl hunting. And I have waterfowlers asking me, could I use WTF camo to hunt geese and ducks? And I'm like, well, I have hunters that are doing it and they're making out just fine. I said, let me ask you this question. I said, how many times do you think geese have flown over, and how many times do you think they've seen that cane, grass, corn pattern? How many times do you think they've seen, some of the other cameras out there? Said, I guarantee if you're laying out in the field, they ain't never seen this pattern before. So you, it is definitely something they haven't seen before. But I was just talking to a hunter a few weeks ago. He's like, oh yeah, he goes, I duck hunt and goose hunt, and he goes, Doesn't seem to bother them. He goes, they don't seem to notice it. He goes, but yeah, I do all my hunting in it. It's interesting. If you scroll down a little bit and we look at these two different pictures towards the bottom of that page. Now, this isn't the woods, but it does kind of show you what a deer sees. And what's really good to point out about this is you notice how bright those blues show. And, when I was 15, before I had camo pants, I was wearing blue jeans and kind of the army fatigue type jacket. And then they come out with, tree bark and a couple other things. But you'll notice how blues show in deer vision for someone who's red-green colorblind. So that is one thing that, the wildlife biologists also highlight is deer see blue better than any other color. Now you can imagine with all those other colors that you see on the top there, the reds, the oranges. Unfortunately, there were no green surfboards up there, but how everything else ends up kind of being muted colors, but the blues still stand out. And I have hunters walking up to me all the time and say, hey, I killed a big buck wearing jeans and a t-shirt that smelled of diesel fuel because I just worked on my truck. I'm like, I get it. It happens. If you were upwind and the deer never looked in your direction, you can get away with a lot. Um, I had one guy write a post, um, you know, that he said basically he sits still and plays the wind and you know, he could shoot a big buck wearing a pink prom dress. And I'm like, well, actually, technically, to a deer, pink looks like a shade of gray, so you might be able to pull that off. Um,
Yeah.
so the thing I say is, because a lot of hunters will tell me stories of how they've shot a buck and they don't need camo or whatever else. Oh, okay. So what I often say is that we all know you can kill a deer wearing anything, and we've all heard the stories. You can kill a deer wearing anything, but you can't always kill a deer wearing anything. I mean, you could be
Right.
on stand, and just because the deer never looks your direction, there's no deer to look up. They never look your way. They never even had a chance to silhouette you. You could have been up there in a Speedo and a pink shirt and shot that deer. And those are the stories we hear. Not exactly, but had that deer looked your direction, you know, what I ask hunters is like, if you had 10 camo patterns in front of you and you knew there was the one that gave you the best, best, best possible chance, more so than any other ones, and that was the buck of the lifetime, which camo would you be wearing? And
Yeah.
that's kind of the conversation. The hunters that use this, they've switched from everything that's out there. They've switched from, Realtree, Mossy Oak, Sitka, Predator, um, ASIO, Treason. Um, they've switched from a little bit of everything to WTF Camo and say they'll never go back. But we also know, I often say hunters are the biggest fashion princesses in the world.
Yeah.
And we are. I mean, my brother who wears WTF Camo and man, he's shot a nice buck every year with my camo. He's shot, I think now 5 bear in New Brunswick with the camo. He's gotten a turkey the last 3 seasons. So I mean, he shot really nice animals and had great success with the camo. You wouldn't catch him dead wearing that to Walmart or Lowe's. He's going to throw on his really nice, Whitetail Legends jacket or his nice Realtree jacket. So what I often say is, if you want to go to Lowe's or Walmart, you can wear one of the other camo. But if you really want to have your best possible chance of putting a deer or another big game animal on the ground, WTF camo has that edge, and that's why everybody that works in my booths, they're all hunters. They're all there volunteers. Because the company is just me and my son. So at this coming event, I have 17 different hunters, um, most of which I never knew until I come out with this camo. They just they kind of came on board with maybe groups or teams they're part of as field reps or brand ambassadors. They believed in the camo before they even tried it, and then they use it. And some of them have, you know, uh, one of my hunters, Irv Warner, he's going to be helping out. His wife Shannon, they were sitting in a side by side in a double ladder stand, and doe came right in, looked straight up at him, went right back to feeding, and she shot the first deer of her life 2 seasons ago with the camo. That's the kind of stuff that just really excites me when I hear it. Of course, we have hunters that have shot some really, really nice trophy buck, like really nice, and some of them are consistently doing it year after year. I love those stories and I love that success. I also love people that are getting their very first deer ever in archery season with the camo. And I love seasoned hunters that shot a doe and say, I shot this doe 10 yards on the ground with my recurve when she looked at me and then looked away and started to walk away. Those are the stories that I get really excited about because if it works like that for the nanny doe, then you know it's going to help you with everything else.
Yeah, I've actually got one spot in one properties I hunt that there's no real good place for a tree stand,
Mhm.
on the trail. And I'm just thinking, it's like, if I could just stand there at a convenient spot,
Yeah.
or sit on a chair at a convenient spot, then I could be within range for the bow. Otherwise I
Yeah.
got to sit on top of the hill with the gun and shoot rifle season, you
Yeah,
know?
my field reps, Raising Arrows Outdoors in Lancaster, they actually have a video up on their YouTube channel and their Facebook page. Andy took his neighbor Dave out, no trees, and there was standing corn, so they were just sitting right at the standing corn, and a buck came walking by and just shot him right there, sitting next to the corn. The buck just walked right by him. I've had hunters tell me deer have walked so close to them they could touch them with their bow when the deer looked like right at them and then kept walking on. Um, I had my own close encounter with about a 2.5-year-old 8 point. I was sitting on the ground in the crotch of a tree, and it was a place I hadn't hunted before, so I just walked in, grabbed the crotch of a tree, and because I was overlooking a trail that had 3 scrapes on it, and the buck came from, and he came in a way I wasn't expecting him to come, and he pretty much walked over the trail and came straight at me feeding. And he came to within 10 feet. I paced it after he left. He came within 10 feet. It was just looking like straight at me and kind of moved his head side by side. And then he just kind of turned to his right and walked away and ended up walking broadside to my left at about 20 yards and then circled up behind me. And that was my own little close up encounter. I'm like, hey, this is pretty cool. And I was talking to somebody else yesterday. Back when I started hunting, in the when I started archery hunting in 1976, 77 timeframe. And back then I remember, ground hunting and just putting a little like, branch and leaf blind in front of me and getting deer that would walk sometimes 5, 10 yards away. But then as the deer got more, I guess I'll call it educated, and as more hunters got out in the field, it seemed like all of a sudden deer. Now I remember about the time when deer started looking up in the air. When we first started hunting in stands, in ladder stands and climbing stands way back when, we had an advantage for a little while. And boy, it didn't take but a couple, 2, 3 years when deer started looking up. And now they look up all the time. And depending upon which direction they approach from, you might be behind the tree, up against the tree in their line of sight, or you might be straight out hanging off the side of that tree. And that's where I love hearing hunter stories, how they just don't get picked off regardless of, what angle a deer comes in and how they look up at them.
Yeah, I know we've got one place here that I haven't hunted there, but it's a pretty popular place to hunt. It's right off the river, and there's so many hunters are out there that the deer look up all the time.
Mhm.
They just know to look up because they had so much, predators from above that now they look up, and something like this, let them look up. Who cares? Um,
Yeah, one of the things that I do, and it's kind of fun as a small private company, you can do these kind of things. I have a friend, his name's Dan Christ, and he's a wildlife artist. And he one of the he does regular paintings and prints, but he also paints on turkey feathers. So he's kind of been known as the guy who paints on turkey feathers. So what I started doing was offering for the hunter that shot the highest gross score whitetail with turkey feather. That's my son, Brendan. What I would present them with this painted turkey feather of their actual buck. So we've had some, we've done it. This will be, yeah, the third year in a row. And this year, really nice 156, I believe, that a guy shot from Vermont, but he shot it in northern Pennsylvania. So I'm going to be presenting that to him at the show next week. But last year, it was offered also for the first like bull moose or bull elk or mule deer buck. And nobody's yet shot I don't have many hunters that hunt out west yet. So we haven't had a bull elk or mule deer yet. But last year, an 84-year-old gentleman drew a tag for a bull moose in Vermont. And he got himself a bull moose with a crossbow at 84. So they came down from Vermont and I presented him with that. He didn't know he was getting it. And I presented that to him. And I'll tell you, there wasn't a dry eye around that booth at the show. And absolutely not a dry eye. And I was so happy to present him with that. So I asked him what's next. Heck, he was heading out to Texas turkey hunting in the spring and somewhere else hunting. And he had all kind of plans of what other hunting he was doing. But that was so neat to be able to present him with that painted turkey feather of his own moose. Yeah, I saw you were just on the my community outreach page there. So I have I'm on the board and volunteer for a group called River House PA, and we work with veterans that have PTSD issues, and we believe getting them in the outdoors and in healing through nature. And luckily, there's a lot of organizations out there that do that. We work with some local people, and they'll go out on the hike. I'll take them out on the hike, kayaking, tubing, biking, and then they all come back to our founder's house. Um, her name's Cindy Ross, and her husband Todd built the log house that they live in. And then the veterans come back after the hike, and I'm the cook. So I always want to know what they're gonna get to eat. And they usually they eat pretty well. So we do like the last time I made a andouille chicken and shrimp gumbo with rice, and then we had dessert. The time before that, we did a low country seafood boil with with shrimp and potatoes and andouille sausage and corn and everything. So uh, we get them in the outdoors, then we help feed them. And veterans always get a 15% discount on the website. So there's the validation that's on the website. So veterans always get a 15%. Veterans and first responders get a 15% discount at all times on the website through a GovX ID verification. But if there's any veterans out there listening that struggle with PTSD, Cindy actually wrote a book. She's an outdoor travel writer, so she wrote a book. And I think I actually have. Do I have mine in here? Um, Hang on one second. I'm gonna have mine to grab.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's always nice when you can do stuff like that and help,
No,
help
I
the
don't have the
veterans
book.
out.
I don't have the book in the bag, but it's called Walking Toward Peace and by Cindy Ross. It's on Amazon and it profiles the stories of 25 veterans and how they use nature to heal from their PTSD. And there's a lot of resources in there in the back that are available to veterans, a lot of links and names of other organizations that veterans can utilize. So Cindy got started with the Hike Off the War program, and then a veteran named Zach that hiked the Appalachian Trail and did really well, got off the trail, and then 3 months later took his own life. So Cindy's idea was it wasn't enough for him to be on the trail for 5 months. He needed something that was kind of year round. There we go. And so um, Cindy started this River House PA program. I think we're in our 10th year now. And as we learned more about the veterans and more about their stories, she actually wrote this book to profile the stories of 25 veterans. So kind of the mission and purpose of what we do is we're not there to counsel. In fact, some of the veterans that are in this book I've known for 8, 9, 10 years. I did not know a single one of their story until I read the book because we're not there to counsel them or talk about their military history. We're really there just to provide them an experience in the outdoors. We've taken them in the corn mazes, we've done some pretty cool things, simple things in the outdoors, and then feed them. And this book highlights 25 veterans that and how they use nature to heal. And now Zach is profiled in that book, the one that passed away, but it's a it's an inspirational book, and it also really gives you understanding of the veterans tell their stories and then tell how they found nature. And it's some amazing, amazing stories. And I'm privileged to have known some of the veterans to come to know some of the veterans that are in there. And I've been happy to learn about organizations that take veterans on hunting fish trips and fishing trips, veteran run organizations that do that. So it's exciting to see that we work with anywhere from 10 to 20 veterans at a time at our events. So we're touching just a small number, but um, it's great to see there's so many other organizations that are also providing services out there. And Cindy highlights a lot of those organizations in the back of that book. Thanks for bringing it up, Roy. Appreciate
Yeah.
that. We have,
Yeah, you can also get on Audible and listen to it. And for those of us,
oh,
that
great.
have an account, I just click on buy with one of my credits that I get each month, and it gives me something to listen to on my drive to and from work, which is about 45 to 50 minutes, depending on what time I leave. So,
Oh,
I
gotcha.
listen to books while I'm driving.
Yeah,
So,
that's
but if you
great.
like the physical book, you can get on Amazon here. I'll leave links to these in the description,
Well,
so it makes it easier for people to find. And
I know we'll steer away from archery for 1 second, but this is really fascinating. So, one of the veterans that we work with that's in the book, his name's Dan Stein. And Dan came to us a lot of challenges, and not very social, and really had experienced a lot of difficulties. And so Dan came to the program. Me, Cindy, her husband Todd, all worked with him, and he moved out to Colorado for a while, moved back to Pennsylvania. So I think we made a difference for Dan and the organization. Then go back to Black Friday 2021. Cindy's husband Todd, who was a wood chainsaw wood carver and blacksmith by profession, also did painting, fell off of his blacksmith roof and suffered a spinal cord injury. And in the beginning, couldn't move any of his limbs at all. He had skin sensation, but he couldn't move anything. And he's worked very, very hard over the last 3 years, and made a major milestone where he has now walked half a mile without a walker or a cane. Now, one of the people that is helping Todd and has been working with him for the last 2.5 years, a couple days a week, weight training, stretching, is that same veteran, Dan Stein. So someone that came into our organization that we thought we could help and helped has now turned around and is spending a couple days every week. And his mission was to help Todd walk again. And Todd is now walking again. And it's just amazing how you seek to help others, and sometimes they end up helping you, and without even knowing that that's where you're going to end up. But that was a little sidetrack there. But as you're going through the page there, the One Wish Foundation is an organization here in Pennsylvania that does grants wish to kids that have life-altering medical issues, and they do things like hunting trips, fishing trips, um, things you can't get through Make-A-Wish. So that's a great organization here in Pennsylvania, and it's great to see the hunting community come together.
So go ahead and share that spot so people look at what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, the One Wish Foundation. And then there's another organization here in Pennsylvania called Camo Cares, and they do something similar. And it's really cool to see hunting organizations or hunters all throughout the country that really come together and create these types of opportunities for kids and youth. That young lady there, she wanted to swim with the dolphins. So that just reminds me, I have to check in with One Wish because they usually sell out within a few days. They get about 1,000 people at their banquet, and they usually sell out pretty quickly. And I'm always a sponsored vendor, and that's our River House, PA. We don't and that's actually Todd right there in the middle on his bike. And Todd and Cindy, Cindy has written multiple books. She and Todd were long distance hikers. They've hiked the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, the Continental Divide Trail. So they're well known in the long distance hiking community. And now, starting in a couple of months, Cindy and Todd with that adaptive bike, they're going to, there's a new trail that is a cross country biking trail, and they are going to do the vast majority of that trail. Um, I believe they're doing half of it this year and half the following year. So they're going to set out on a venture of doing that. And then the Resilient, um, that is a group of veterans, and two of them met while they were patients in Walter Reed. And the one gentleman that was on that picture on the last page, if we go back to that last tab, I
Right
think
there.
it's
Oh, on this one.
that tab. Okay. So the gentleman second from right, he is with the long hair and sunglasses, the one that looks cooler than I could ever possibly look in my life. He oh, sorry about that. That might have linked to a different page there. So
Yeah, yeah. I thought I'd just like I'd blow it up, but
he actually did music therapy at Walter Reed for the veterans. And then Tim at the far right, and I can't remember the guy's name left, but that gentleman at the far left that has a left arm and no legs and no right arm, he's the drummer. And the way he does it is so cool. And he even has a device that he holds in his hand, his left hand, while he's drumming. He can press things that make other things happen on his drums. So that music therapist worked with them, and then they had Roger Waters from Pink Floyd come in and met with them and spent some time with them. And then they invited him to come back to do something else there at Walter Reed. And he said, I'll only come back if those guys perform a band. Um, so the guy at the far left is the drummer. The second from left is the bass player, and I'm sorry, guitarist. And then Tim at the far right is the singer. And Tim used to play guitar, and then the gentleman there with the sunglasses, he plays guitar. And Roger Waters said he would only come back if they formed a band. So they did, and then they actually got to do some touring with Roger Waters from Pink
cool.
Floyd. So they get to perform in a lot of different places, but they really demonstrate that despite some of the challenges they've faced, and I think Tim at the far right, I believe he was in Walter Reed for close to 6 years, and he actually met his wife there. Um, and So these are just a few of the things that I profile on my page, and I think it's as a hunting community, um, we bond together being archery hunters. We bond together with groups we become part of or clubs. But another area that tend to bond together is also in um, giving back to the community, whether it's one of my field rep groups here in Pennsylvania. Um, they actually do education. They're called Backyard Bucks, and they're affiliated with Whitetails Unlimited. So they go into the schools and do archery. They do programs in schools. They do programs at camps, and that's kind of part of the reason why they exist. So I think it's also great when you see hunters and hunting communities come together to give back. Because the one thing that we see a challenge in the hunting industry right now is we got a lot fewer hunters than we used to, and we really need to get our youth involved. And um, women are a growing segment of our hunting sport. In fact, actually, in hopefully April, maybe as late as May, I'm coming out with a women's collection. So women's fit clothing for my WTF Camo pant, jacket, long sleeve shirt. And I'm also coming out with lightweight pants for both men and women. And the other thing I'm coming out with is our tall sizes for men. I had some hunters come up to me at the show. One guy specifically come up and he said, "You have freak sizes." And he was about 6'6". I said, "Man, I don't." He goes, "There is nothing for tall guys to wear." And in my mind, I kind of called bullshit because, like, how could these huge camo companies not have tall stuff? And then I started Googling, and he was right. There really isn't much out there for tall guys. And I imagine, just from a standpoint of the really large manufacturer's perspective, it's just such a small segment of the market. But for me, you know, my next order is like, a little over 1,000 jackets and 1,000 pants. I can add more on that are tall sizes. So I can do that because I can say, hey, out of my next, 1,200 jackets I'm ordering, I want 150 to be tall and 150 to be tall for the pant sizes. I don't remember what my numbers were, but um, I've had so many hunters that would have liked to have bought it, but I didn't have tall. And I have a lot of women wearing the camo today, but I also had women that said they really, really want camo that fits their bodies and fits, their curves and how things that feel good for them. So I'm coming out with a women's collection in the April-May timeframe.
Well, and if you have uh, a lot of the tall sizes, if you need a tall size and you start Googling for, you know, extra large tall, what's going to show up? Your product. So it's
I
not
hope
a big
so.
market, but it's an exclusive market.
I'm hoping that I got enough. I'm just waiting. It's going to be like Bigfoot. You don't see Bigfoot, and then all of a sudden, 100 of them walk out of the woods.
Right.
I've talked to, several dozen tall guys that I've personally talked to, but now that I'm offering this and I'm going to be advertising it, I don't know how many tall guys are going to want to buy the camo. So I hope I have enough to start out with in that inventory. If not, then I'll know I'll need to order more next time. But it's it's um it's been exciting doing this over the last you know, well, technically we started with the design process with Brendan working on design in, early 2014. That took 5 years. But as far as actually selling the camo, really beginning of 2022. So, coming in to start my fourth year now, it's exciting. I love hearing the experiences that hunters have. It's also challenging. I mean, this is my side job. I have a full-time job. Much like you, I don't think, Roy, you're commuting an hour back and forth each day to do podcasting. My guess is
No.
you're working a regular job and this is your evening thing. And so it is challenging. So I'm hoping in a few years to be able to transition to be able to do WTF Camo full time. And I'm blessed, beyond blessed, to have friends and field reps that tag along and take vacation and go with me to these shows to help me out in booths. And it's and again, I didn't know there were, of all the people that helped me out, I only knew uh well, the Noss family, and one other guy, Keith Rutt. Everybody else I've met since I came out with this camo that come along to the shows, and helped me out. Several came to the Archery Trade Association show a few weeks ago and helped me. And um, one guy, Zach Sexton out of Ohio, he just kind of switched up careers. He's now a taxidermist, so he has time. So he's going to come and help me at the Iowa Deer Classic. He helped last year. I mentioned Barry's taking off all next week to help me in Harrisburg, and a couple of other people are taking off a weekday to come help. And it's something honestly, Roy, I never anticipated. When I started this, I was just kind of looking at it as a side business, and I was just going to be selling, trying to sell camo. I had no idea that I would get connected into this community and meet people that have become really good friends and people that um, believe in what we've created and love to tell their stories and experiences about using what we've created, and give up their weekends to come and help me at this upcoming show. And it is a grind of a show. The Great American Outdoor Show, which I'm sure you're seeing advertised,
Yeah.
it's February 1st to the 9th. And here in Harrisburg, there'll be about a little over 200,000 people. They used to be about 225 before COVID, and then they didn't have the show for a couple of years. So they've been working their way back up. But last year they crossed that 200,000 threshold. So you got 200,000 people funneling through there in 9 days, but it's huge. It's a huge, huge venue. Um, and I got people that now it might have something to do with the Warner family when they're there, but I do hand them my credit card and tell them to go get us all milkshakes. That might have something to do with it. Usually about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'll look at Alexis or Caitlin or Nick or somebody. I'm like, I think it's milkshake time. And I hand them my business credit card. I'm like, I think it's time to go get some milkshakes. And the last couple of years, we've gotten group photo shots of all of us with our milkshakes there at the Great American Outdoor Show.
Gotta be chocolate milkshake though.
I go for chocolate, some
Or
go for vanilla, but they only
or
do chocolate.
butterscotch.
What's that?
Or butterscotch.
Oh,
That's
I've
my
never.
favorite.
I'm kind of a purist when it comes to my milkshakes. I'm a chocolate malt shake guy or a chocolate shake guy. Um, and now there's one other place near where I grew up that has frozen custard, and they make a pretty good black raspberry shake. Um, but yeah, I'm pretty much a chocolate shake guy all the way. Every now and then, every once in a great while, I'll have them make me a chocolate shake like 75% up, and then 25% up is vanilla. Um, just because every now and then I do like tasting a little bit of vanilla, but not a whole vanilla shake. So that's actually, by the way, a great tip for anybody out there. When come March, when Shamrock shakes come out, have them make your Shamrock shake with half chocolate and then half Shamrock mint on top. That's the best combo. It ends up tasting like a Girl Scout cookie, Thin Mint Girl Scout cookie.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
It's someone, I wish it were my idea. Someone said, have them mix it 50-50. I'm like, well, why would I want them to mix it? And I'm like, oh, they mean put 50%, like Shamrock and 50% chocolate, one on top, one on bottom. And then if you want to get both, you can poke your straw down through. So um, this might be the best tip anybody gets on this podcast today.
I don't know, the tips on the camo's been pretty good.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Roy. It's like I said, it's been shocking to me, um, creating this business and the way I've been able to meet people and develop these friendships and develop and just have people that buy one year and then come back and tell me stories the next year. I'm really, really excited to see a group I sold to last year. Um, the Amish community is very, very hard to get into. In fact, I still have yet to sell to Pennsylvania Amish, but I had 5 gentlemen from Ohio that are Amish that bought last year. They spent a lot of time talking to me in 2023, and then they came back in 22, 24 and bought. So I'm really excited to see John and his buddies come back this year to the show, and I can't wait to hear their experiences. Well, technically, oh, I kind of lied. Technically, I do have a Pennsylvania Amish gentleman. He actually owns an archery shop, and he bought my camo set. I started a program. He actually has an archery shop called Forge Hill Outdoors near Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. And I started this program. It's called a zero inventory program. And I have it out on my website, but I got to make that a little bit more clear. Archery shops, they don't want to carry camo because, if you really need to carry just the basic sizes and basic what you need, you pretty much got to lay out 10 grand for inventory.
Right.
And they don't necessarily have the floor space, but archery shops, a lot of them, their revenue stream is changing because, crossbows made up over 65% of all bow sales last year. And whereas a lot of archery shops got a lot of their revenue servicing compound bows and tuning and restringing and all that, people are not getting their crossbows serviced in the same manner. So a lot of archery shops are looking for another revenue stream. So what I did is I created this zero inventory program. And what it is for $500, an archery shop gets a full camo clothing suit sent to them, as well as a full life-size mannequin, and then also a 2 foot by 81-inch pull-up banner that has photographs on, a description of the camo, and also a QR code that's their custom QR code. And then they also get a portal that has the overall web link for their site, as well as a link for every product. And then everything that sells, they get a 20% commission on. So most affiliate programs are in like the 3-4% range. Um,
Right.
so I'm treating them like a retail store almost without them having to carry inventory. So an archery shop for $500 can put up a mannequin with the full WTF camo suit on it, a banner, and have their own QR code. And after 7 full suit camo sales, everything from that point forward is pure profit to them. And the fact that I'm expanding my collection to have women's as well as, lightweight pants, there's going to be a full WTF camo hoodie coming out in the spring as well. It's a low risk for the archery shop. It's a little bit of a different model for them. And it involves them using their own website and their own social media as well to promote the products and such. But basically, when a consumer comes in, the only thing they see different is the landing page thanks them for supporting their local sporting goods store or archery shop. Other than that, the rest of the site is identical to the main WTFcamo.com site. And then it tracks all the sales, and then they'll get a quarterly commission paid back out from whatever sales they get. So actually, Alvin Esch, that has this archery shop near Shippensburg, Pennsylvania, um, he actually has a setup there, and then he bought a suit. So I ran into him at the Archery Trade Association. I'm like, Alvin, how was hunting with WTF Camo? He goes, man, he goes, it was great. He says, I could not believe. He goes, they can't see me. He says, they just couldn't see me. He says, I didn't have a deer see me all season long. So I said, well, that's great. Now that the shop owner is also using it and has had those hunting experiences, it helps for people coming in his shop. The
Right.
other really cool one is I contracted with a marketing and branding company that specializes in supporting outdoor brands. And they work with, ammunition companies, outdoor apparel companies, and they really specialize in this. Well, the owner of the company is also an archery hunter. So he bought a WTF camo suit. He goes, well, I can kind of see it. I can see how it can work. And he goes, if if you're going to engage with us, he goes, I'll give it a shot. So it's Bill Fisher Design, and Bill Fisher's the president of the company. So on a Saturday morning in archery season, I was in a ladder stand in Ohio, and he was in a ladder stand in Indiana. He texted me at about 8 o'clock in the morning and says, "Hey, I used your camera for the first time last night. Great." He goes, "I had a young buck and a doe come literally right underneath me, looked straight up at where I was at, never saw me, and just went right back to feeding and going about their business." He goes, "That was just awesome." He goes, they just looked straight up and didn't see me. And then Roy, an hour and a half later, he texted me. He goes, "Well, that didn't take long." And he shot a 10 point, a really nice 10 point. And he said that buck came into him from behind, and he actually had to stand up while the buck was looking his direction. He stood up slow, turned around, and put a shot on that buck while that buck was looking his direction. I texted him back. I said, I want to make sure I understood your message right. Are you telling me that buck was looking up at your direction and you were able to stand up and stand, turn around and put a shot on him while he was looking? He says, yep, and you can post that. So it kind of helps when the marketing and branding company that you've contracted with has that kind of experience because now he knows how the camo works and believes in it. So I'm excited. I've been working with them and because I've worked in the healthcare information system space my entire career. And if I were to create a company, you know, with a product for hospitals, I would know how to market it. I would know how to sell it. I would know who to go to talk to sell it. Um, this industry is very unique, and we've seen businesses come and go. So, um, I really don't have those connections, and I needed a little help. Even with well, I got to do the math. A 30-year career in sales alone, um, helps me. But this is a unique market. So I
Yeah.
decided I need some help and some help with my digital marketing strategy as well. And I was watching an episode of Shark Tank and they were asking the people, well, how did you achieve this level of sales? They said, well, we started out just doing Facebook ads and then we realized that wasn't cutting it. So we went to a different digital strategy. And I'm like, okay, that's what I've been doing. And, I've been doing the Facebook ads and the Google ads. And it's helping. But I need a better strategy. Obviously, word of mouth and the pictures themselves of what the camel looks like in the woods is probably my biggest seller. But you know, I want to kind of grow this thing to really have it be not necessarily a household name, but to be a name that's really understood in the archery community as, hey, there's a lot of really cool patterns out there, but there's one that really has created a niche for itself and used science to create the pattern and took a completely different approach. I mean, technically, it's not even camo. Camo is defined as blending in your surroundings. So technically, it's not even camo. It's really, kind of a silhouette disruption pattern. But that's kind of my goals. Is I want to keep growing. I've expanded my collection for the spring to add on some of the like the lightweight pants and the hoodie and the women's collection. But I got people banging on my door for winter weight clothing. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I got to sell a lot of current camo to be able to fund the winter weight clothing because you know, this is when people ask me how committed are you to this business, you're going to be around for the long term. I'm like, well, the last check I wrote for my inventory order came out of my 401k, so I'm moving the chips into the middle of the table. So yes, I'm very serious about this business. I'm serious about growing this business, making it successful, and it is successful. Um, but we've seen other products out there that have been products that worked great and have disappeared from the market just because they weren't marketed correctly. They didn't find the right messaging. And I want to try to avoid those mistakes because the pattern works better than anything any of the hunters that use it have used before. And whether that's on deer or turkey or bear, whatever, they're all experiencing. And coyote are also red green colorblind. So I have coyote hunters that use it. Um, So I have to do the pattern justice in making sure that I'm taking every proper step to really get it out there in the market. And it's not as easy as everybody lining up in my front door saying, "Hey, I want to buy it. I want to buy it. I want to buy it." It's a lot of hard work,
Yeah.
and but I'm excited about the opportunity.
Well, it's not always the best product that wins, it's the best marketing. Back, yeah, being old, remember the VHS and beta formats
Oh
for your
yeah,
videotapes. Betamax is a far superior format.
yep,
But you ever
absolutely,
heard of any of those? No, it's all VHS
yeah,
because they had better
absolutely.
marketing.
I do remember the Betamax cameras. I knew somebody that had one, but news to say they ran out of its usefulness real quick. But I think another really good example in the market is Yeti. I mean, there are other coolers that use the same technology, and I have a big fridge products here. I have a big fridge tumbler and a Yeti tumbler, and I did the pile them both with ice and see how long they last. And they both last the exact same amount of time. But Yeti, the way they marketed themselves and created a name for themselves and created a high-end expensive product, it was something everybody felt they had to have. Um, I don't know if people looked when they were going through, when you were going through the website, but my goal was to create a very high quality product in terms of the quality of the apparel itself at what I call blue collar pricing. And the reason is, my brother and my nephew build houses. The other guy we went with, Sean, drives tractor trailer. My best buddy Barry, I was talking about, works in a steel mill. Um, Keith from Raising Airs Outdoors, he drives his own dump truck. So I work with and know a lot of blue collar hunters. And, you know, even if they wanted to buy Sitka, they don't have that kind of money to go out and spend on that gear. So I wanted to create wanted with my son to create not only the most effective pattern on the market, but also to put it in very high quality clothing at a reasonable price. And I think that's what we've done. I mean, the jackets are 169, the pants are 109. They might go up a little bit because of my manufacturing costs went up. But basically for I think it's 300 and I think it's $363, something like that. You can get jacket, pants, neck gaiter, hat, long sleeve shirt, and gloves. Now, there's other brands out there. You can't even buy a jacket for that dollar figure. So I really wanted to make the best pattern in a really, really high quality clothing and make it really affordable for everybody out there. Um, and I think that's been why, when hunters get it in the mail, one of my hunters, my field reps, Andy Hicks out of Missouri, I remember I was in a Hallmark store. He calls me up. He goes, Tim, he goes, now I knew this pattern was awesome. He goes, and I like the way the clothing looked, but you didn't tell me it was going to be this comfortable. He goes, these pants, he goes, it's like wearing pajamas. He goes, these are like as comfortable as my fleece pajamas. He goes, I had no idea the clothing was going to feel this good, be this comfortable, have that nice side to side stretch. And that's what's really been cool is hunters being surprised at the quality and the comfort of the clothing for the price. Because I think we're kind of getting into that market where when we're dealing with a hunting product, we kind of begin to assume that the best one is the most expensive one. And I'm not looking for that elite status symbol prestige. I'm just looking for the pattern to be recognized as the most effective hunting pattern on the market. And that's really what the goal is. That's what the hunters that use it believe. And that's really what I'm going after. And I'm not greedy. I don't need to get rich. I don't need to price this thing so high. In fact, Inside Archery Magazine did a product review in their January issue. And they called me up as a product of the review. He goes, Tim, he goes, we've been doing product reviews for 14 years. He goes, I can count on one hand the number of products that we've reviewed that had this level of quality at the type of price point that you're at. He goes, we would have expected you to be twice the price you are. He goes, why are you priced the way you are for this level of quality? And I explained to him, I wanted the best quality at blue collar pricing. And that way hunters can feel that they've gotten something outstanding. And it was money well spent.
Well, and as long as you're making a profit, you sell more of them, you're going to have the bottom line's going to be, good for
Yep.
you anyway. So,
I'm going to knock on wood for that profitability part. I,
well,
I
well,
was
once you
telling,
start selling them, you're
I was just talking to this about a guy yesterday when I was setting up at the Great American Outdoor Show. I said, yeah, I mean, my sales are going up pretty good each year, but the inventory order I just did is larger than my total sales for the last 3 years because I need to expand the collection. I need to grow the inventory. So I'm still in that invest stage, but I think finally, I think within the next 1 or 2 years, I'll be in that point where it becomes self-sustaining heading into 2025, 2026. Um, I'll finally get on the other side of that curve. But like any small business, it takes a lot of investment up front to get started and create a good product, but you got to keep adding on. It wasn't enough just to have this. I have to, of course, replenish the sizes that I need and then add tall and then add another 4X size in jackets and add women's. I'm really excited about the women's collection. And one note on the women's collection, one of my field reps, a guy named JP Ashworth out of Alabama, his daughter unfortunately passed away in 2023. She was 7 years old, and she would go in the deer stand with him, never got to hunt, and she passed away from mosquito-borne equine encephalitis. And there's only just a small handful. I think that year there were only like 2 or 3 children nationwide that succumbed to that disease. So, real tragedy. And he started the Julia Grace Foundation. And I need to get them added onto that page. So, he started the Julia Grace Foundation and, uh, and to basically provide resources and education about mosquito-borne diseases, helping people protect their kids, having more knowledge about protecting your kids. And he's extending some of what he's doing into Africa. So 5% of the gross sales of everything in the women's line is going to go to the Julia Grace Foundation, and we're actually naming it the Julia Grace Collection. So the women's collection is going to be in honor of Julia Grace, who unfortunately never got the opportunity to hunt herself. And then 5% of all sales are going to go to the Julia Grace Foundation to support that mission. So we're excited about that. And on the hang tags, there's going to be a picture of Julia Grace when she was in a box blind with her dad with shooting muffs on. And it's a reminder of how precious life is, how tragic it can sometimes be. But they're doing a lot of work to sustain her memory with the foundation, and we're going to do that by naming this women's collection the Julia Grace Collection and having that portion go to the foundation. So um, excited about that and supporting them.
Yeah. Yeah. Send me a link to that and I'll put that in the description as well so that
I
people
will.
can
I'll
support that
get you
as
a link
well.
to the foundation, and we're also doing that bow that we're going to be launching, the 56-inch Alpha Hybrid Max longbow. It's a beautiful bow, and I just had. It's going to be a production bow, but the bowyer is making the first few, so he just made one, and we're going to have a little medallion on the side for remembering Julia Grace. And we're going to outfit that one with a quiver and probably some arrows as well. And then I'm going to find a way to auction that off somehow. I know online you can't do things like that through Facebook and everything else, but I'm going to try and find a way to auction that bow, and then 100% of the proceeds will go to the foundation. So the so we're gonna do that as well with one of those bows. That bow with the quiver, the bow is going to retail at $595. The quiver retails, it's on my website. I think it's a little over $100, somewhere around there. That hand sewn leather quiver. So it's going to be a nice bow, but we're going to be looking, for people to be generous to support the foundation with their bids for that long bow. It's a beautiful bow. We want people to hunt with it. It's a great shooting bow, but we want to try to generate some money for the foundation through that as well.
Oh, when you get ready for the auction, let's have you back on the podcast and we'll talk about and promote that as well.
That
Get
sounds
some more
that sounds that
people
sounds
and
that sounds
maybe.
great. Yeah, he just did the finishing touches on the bow. We're gonna get the medallion on, then he's gonna get the quiver together, then we gotta get some arrows made. Um, and then try to find a platform to be able to do that without getting booted off of Facebook or some other one because it's a bow. But we will find a way to get that out there and try to generate some funds for the foundation.
Yeah, there's definitely ways that you can have auctions depending on how you want to do it. There's going to be a lot of options. Whether
Yeah,
you do
it's a
an
shame,
online one with a link or something, and
you see sporting goods clubs that put a picture up of their gun raffle ticket and then they get suspended because they had a raffle picture of a raffle ticket encouraging people to go to them to buy. It's crazy. That Will Steinhauer that I was talking about earlier, my youth field rep, he and one of my other youth field reps, Hunter Higgins, um, they repeatedly have had their pictures, or not pictures, their videos taken down from YouTube for violating their youth safety policy because Hunter was hunting waterfowl and Will filmed his archery hunt, and they suspended his video for violating youth protection policies. Now, it's very interesting, and this is an interesting thing to Google, which I did. If you look at the number of accidents per the number of accidents per activity and where hunting sits in that, you go to BMX biking, skateboarding, football, basketball, baseball, lacrosse, you name it. The number of injury incidents per 10,000 is way, way, way higher than hunting, even in terms of fatalities with BMX biking, skateboarding, and some of the other activities have fatalities. And yet, you can go on YouTube and see pictures of kids skateboarding down a rail with no helmet on and, landing on their skull and being unconscious, and they don't get taken down. But we got a 15-year-old kid who videos shooting a 144-inch buck, self-films it in Pennsylvania, and YouTube takes it down for violating policies. So I'm hoping we get some common sense at some point so that our youth are not continually discouraged from, trying to be content creators because they're putting it out there and they're getting it taken down. It's hard to be a content creator when they keep taking it off of platforms. So I hope we see a little bit of common sense restored on some of these platforms.
yeah, we might in the next 4 years that might change. I'm
Yeah,
hoping.
I'm hoping. I think we've seen, the Twitter slash X platform certainly has become a lot more open and tolerant of free speech, and I'd like to see some of the other platforms. I'd like to see, Facebook, who owns YouTube, or Meta owns YouTube, and TikTok and others. I mean, TikTok, I've had hunters say that if you show any blood, um, the videos get taken down. So they can show the shot, they can show the recovered deer, but they can't have any blood showing, or they'll have it taken down. Um,
I
I don't
I
know.
had
Meanwhile,
one.
there's all kind of videos on TikTok of guys showing how to butcher a half of a beef. So I don't know.
Yeah, I uh I had one where I actually interviewed Nebraska Game and Parks. They have their tree stand safety guys, and I was up at the Outdoor Expo and I interviewed them, and they said one of my videos violated something. So I says, no, it doesn't violate it. And then they let it go by. But their automated thing picked up some word in there,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, it's a violation. And I had one time. There's talking about car you had in high school. I said a '69 Z28 Camaro. They took it down, violated the rules because I said 69 instead of 1969.
Oh my gosh. They need to
And
improve
like,
their AI models a little bit.
yeah, it's like, you
Meanwhile,
never know.
meanwhile, meanwhile, on Facebook Marketplace now, you can be looking at, I'm actually looking for a leather love seat and some club chairs for this area I'm doing up on my second floor. And you're scanning out through. Next thing you know, there's an ad. I'm like, what's that advertisement? Well, it's a sex toy. I'm like, so wait a second. You got hunters having their stuff being taken down. We can't, talk about a bow for sale or anything like that. But now all of a sudden, sex toys are popping up on Facebook Marketplace just randomly. And it's amazing what they choose to allow. And, the hunting community has been under attack for many, many, many years, despite the fact that, we're, a leading contributor to, real conservation. But It's amazing some of the things that slide on these platforms, and then they decide to take down a video of a Hunter Higgins, 15-year-old kid in Minnesota duck hunting.
Yeah. Well, look at
Completely
what comes
safely and
across
responsibly,
Instagram
by
all
the
the
way.
time.
What's that, Roy? I'm sorry, I talked
Look,
over you.
look at what comes over Instagram all the time. I'm constantly, it's like, okay, spam, 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 spam. It's
Yep.
like I'm not getting normal stuff. It's all stuff that's like, I, you get signed up into some of these groups and you had nothing to do with them. It's like you can't get rid of the group. You're on, so all you do is spam everything out, and eventually, you don't get it from that person anymore. But they got groups with thousands of people, and it's sending you off all this spam stuff and
Yeah.
content that you don't want to see. And of course, I don't have any kids around, so but still,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not I'm not great with the social media platforms, and I think it hurts me a little bit because I'm busy. I just don't have time to go in and look, because I'll have one of my hunters say, "Hey, did you share that picture post?" I'm like, "Man, I didn't even see it because I'm not on Facebook all the time. I'm not on Instagram hardly ever, actually. I don't do X unless there's a video that links out from Fox News. Other than that, I don't see anything on there. So I don't spend a lot of time on social media, and it probably hurts me a little bit for getting the word out about the camo. But that's also why I'm working with this other marketing branding company to really help me define a more effective digital strategy. Um,
well, and one of the things that I started doing is, um, like I interviewed a guy that has a lot of patents on archery stuff. And after I get done posting the video, then I upload it to something called Opus Clip. Well, it does, it splits it up into like little reels,
mhm.
and I can post it out. I can put it out automatically to, to X and to my profiles and a whole bunch of different places. Like, and I send them out to LinkedIn and, so I'll do that with this as well. So we get a whole bunch of little clips of different segments of what's going on and just get some information out there. And it's a lot of fun doing that, and also builds up my YouTube subscriptions.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Yeah, I try to promote the videos of my field reps, but I miss I don't know what's going on, but I don't get some of their feeds. It really bothers me in the hunting community that I'll subscribe to various hunting channels on Facebook or hunting pages, but they'll be posting and I don't get them. I don't see them. They don't pop up. And I've had other groups say, yeah, all of a sudden people are saying they're not seeing our posts, and it really bothers me to think, it's hard enough to really promote hunting and get youth involvement and get people involved that may not typically be involved in hunting, and try to get people interested. But then, if there's things going on to actually suppress posts that are being done, I have a couple of my groups, the Raising Arrows Outdoors here in Pennsylvania and Wild Tine TV in Ohio. Yeah, they were posting videos like every week, like a season's worth of videos for multiple weeks in a row. And I wasn't getting notifications, and I'm subscribed to them. I even have them listed as, I even flag them as one of my priorities, and they're not coming up. So that it worries me how, you know, in our community, in our archery community and hunting community overall, when we're trying to share content, when we're trying to, be positive influences in the industry, people might not see it just because algorithms are suppressing it. And
Yeah.
that's unfortunate because I get a lot of crap that shows up in Facebook that I don't subscribe to, but that tag that says um, recommended content, I'm like, this is crap. What? I don't want to see this.
Yeah.
How would you ever think that this is something I'd want to see? But and then you have to keep saying, don't show me this ever again. Don't show me this ever again. But I'm not seeing the stuff I want to see, which is unfortunate. I just
Well,
checked
that's
the time, Roy, and I'll tell you what, we've talked about as long as a pretty good feature film here.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of good information and I've learned a lot about your camo and it's like I'm kind of excited, to see what it's going to do and kind of
I
excited to be able to get
appreciate that.
back out hunting again this next season. And I couldn't do this last season because I had triple bypass, and I'm still not recovered from it.
Oh,
So
oh.
next year, hopefully, I can get out to do that. And I was just thinking, with this camo pattern the way it is, it'd be nice to be able to just get in one of those spots that I can't really get a tree stand close enough.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's
it's why when I go to these shows, um, I let my hunters talk. I let them talk to most of the people that come up to the booth because, you know, they're the ones that have the stories to tell that have, you know, I'm the company owner, but their stories are much more important because it's their true experiences. So I let them talk and engage with the people that walk up to the booth more than myself because um, they're sharing their real life experiences. And like my buddy Barry, he'll tell people like I told you, he said when I first saw the camo, I told my son I thought Tim was going to lose his house. That was his reaction to this. And then the very first week he started wearing it, like I said, he started calling me and telling me what happened. And then he actually shot the biggest buck of his life that year. And he was in a saddle, completely silhouetted. The doe was walking down a trail higher on the ridge, just a little below his same height. Never saw him until he had a game still turned on his phone, and the game went, and that doe just whipped right around, looked straight at him, and she didn't blow, she didn't raise her tail or anything, and he actually had to reach over into his pocket, pull that phone out, and turn it off. And she's watching him the entire time. Still didn't stomp, didn't blow, didn't do anything. And he's like, "Wow, I can't believe I'm getting away with this. Like she's looking at me, but she must not be able to figure out what I am." Well, then next thing you know, here comes a big buck coming down the same trail that she was on. It's about 11:30 in the morning. He must have been on her trail. He comes down. He's like, "I am so screwed." He said, "There I am. My crossbow's on my tether." He goes, and she's looking in my direction. He goes, "I don't have a choice." He reached down, got his crossbow, picked it up off his tether, held it open to an open area. The entire time that doe is still looking at him, probably trying to figure out, what am I seeing? Am I seeing a raccoon, a squirrel? What the heck am I seeing? And he shot that buck in the opening that he had at 24 yards the whole time while that doe was looking in his direction. And I've had hunter after hunter, I didn't talk about this before, talk about how when they've been caught moving, the deer doesn't seem to be able to associate, like if they had been moving their arm, the deer doesn't seem to be able to associate that that is part of your whole body. It's the only thing we can figure out, that the deer can't figure out that what they saw move is any bigger than just that, um, because they're not spooking. But yet when we did that wearing other camo, you'd move that and that looks all connected to this big dark thing that looks not like what I would expect to see. And then they blow, take off, whatever. Um, my one last thing I'll share with you, and then we'll end it. I should have shared this story earlier, but my brother was the biggest skeptic of always, 2 years younger than me. He told me, "Tim, if it has Velcro on it, if it's not comfortable," because he's very sensitive about what feels right. He said, "and if I don't think it works," he says, "I don't care if you're my brother or not, I ain't wearing it." So so I got him a suit for free. Brother got a free suit. And about the third week of archery season, he texts me in the middle of the day and goes, "Well, I had something happen with your camo that I've never had happen before." And my first reaction was shit, because my brother's a builder, and come archery season, he would hunt every morning and every evening. So I know he's out there putting the time in. So I called him that evening, and this was pretty much how I said it. "What happened?" Like, "What happened with the camo?" He said, "Well," he says, "I was walking out the old logging trail, and it's a quiet trail. It would have grass on it." And he said, "I'm walking out and I see three doe feeding about 5 yards off the trail, 80 yards away." He said, I said to myself, he goes, well, let's see how brother's camo works. So he just started walking slowly towards the doe. And every time they would spot movement, they'd look and he'd just stop walking and then they'd get back to feeding. He said, I kept doing that. He goes, and they'd look side to side, trying to figure out what it was they saw move, and then they get back to feeding. He said, Tim, I got to within 5 yards of those doe. He goes, and then they finally just like trotted off in a slow trot. They didn't run, they didn't throw their tails up, they didn't blow, nothing. He goes, I have never had that happen to me before. He hunts on his own land. He has 125 acres that he lives on and hunts on in the mountain. He said, I've never had that happen before. So I was like, all right, if it passed the brother test, I know I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Week 3 of the first season of the camo being out, and I'm like, all right, if it impressed my broom brother, I know I'm doing all right. So that's the last story I'll share with you, and I hope that if people get on the Facebook page, they'll see other stories, and if anybody out there looks at getting themselves a suit, can't wait to hear the stories of your experiences and kind of and it takes a little while. Josh Larson from Primitive Patriot Outdoors, he hunted with it all 2023 whitetail season, had amazing experiences, and then went out mule deer hunting in Colorado with his brother Joe. And they couldn't figure out why the mule deer were acting so weird. Like they were walking up on mule deer, filming them in open fields, and the mule deer weren't spooking. And they're like, must be something different about the mule deer. They just don't seem to be afraid of humans. And like, what is going on? Why is it such a different, like, why are things different? Even though he hunted in this camo all whitetail season, it was his brother Joe that said, you know what? I'll bet it's the camo. It's like, holy shit, you're right. It's the camo. Because the mule deer are looking and they're just looking right back to feeding. It's because they weren't picking him up as one solid object. And he was filming the whole thing. So even when hunting with it, it takes a little while to get used to the fact that this isn't just coincidence. They're really not seeing me. And that's kind of what I love to hear from hunters is
Yeah.
when they tell me that. They say, oh, it's like the deer's looking straight through me. And I'll end with that.
Well, I
And
got one question, and then
yeah,
we'll get out of here. Um, Now, what kind of temperatures is this camo good for?
yeah.
Is it good down to 30 or 40 or 50 or what?
It depends on which one of my hunters you talk to.
Oh,
If
well,
you
yeah.
okay, so I wear it down into the 20s, but I cheat. I wear a Milwaukee heater vest underneath with some good layers. It so but I have guys in Michigan, they were hunting in it, in their late season, layered up. It's not intended to be a cold weather. And in fact, if it's a cold day and I'm layered up, I'm fine. But if there's a wind, uh, it's breathable. So it's meant to be breathable for, earlier on in archery season and be
All right.
comfortable. So the wind will cut through a little bit. So it is really meant for pretty much all of archery season. And I have some hunters that love it so much they wear it, in through rifle season and everything else, and they just put their layers on underneath. Some people have two size jackets, one for archery and then a bigger one to put more layers underneath later. But I don't advertise it as cold weather gear. I plan on coming out with cold weather gear. If all the cards fall right, that might happen in 2026. But and then the lightweight pants, the only other thing that see in early season, sometimes guys will wear the pants and then they'll just wear this long sleeve shirt like I have. But the pants are fleece lined, and if it's hot, they can be a little warm. So that's why I'm coming out with a WTF Camo lightweight pant in the spring. So I'm going to really try to cover the warm temperatures and some of the southern hunters. I will say I hunted September muzzleloader season in Kansas with my pants and my jacket, and the first day the blind was corrugated steel. So it's three sides of corrugated steel roof and a door. And that first Tuesday was 93 degrees.
Oh,
I felt like I was in one of those Civil War punishment hot box things or something.
yeah.
But I ended up taking my jacket off and just had the shirt on, but I kept my long sleeve pants. My brother actually wore shorts that day to the stand. I said, by God, if I own a camo company, I'm gonna sit in here and I'm gonna wear my long pants. It wasn't terrible, but it's that's why I'm coming out with nice, lightweight, breathable pants. Um, and hoping to come out. I have hunters asking me for cold weather gear. One of my field reps, Brian Boise in Vermont, in this inventory order I did, he had me order just some plain fabric, and they're going to sew it onto their those whole hunter bodysuits, the heater suits. So he believes in it that much, and he shot nice buck every year in archery season. So for the later season, he wears one of those full body heater hunter suits. They kind of almost look like a sleeping bag with sleeves and stuff. And so they're going to sew the pattern onto that. So I'm committed to come out with cold weather gear. I'm probably going to come out with bibs first. I don't know if I'll be able to do jackets at the same time I do bibs, but I'll probably come out with bibs first. Um, it all depends on how things sell and how the money comes in for that. But it's really meant for archery season. And down south, the jacket can be a little warm, and they'll just use the shirt. But I really need a lightweight pants, so that's why I'm coming out with that. So now I think I got it covered from early archery season the whole way through all of archery season. And then depending upon where you're at in the country, some guys still wear it in the rifle. We didn't have a really cold rifle season this year, so I wore it in rifle season. Um, Last year we had a pretty cold rifle season. A couple days I was out, I didn't wear it. I wore other cold weather gear that I have that was not my pattern. But I really advertise this right now. What I have is archery weight clothing, archery season, first archery season weight clothing.
Yeah, yeah, because our archery season goes till December 31st, so
Yeah,
it can get
we
pretty cold here in Nebraska in December.
yeah, we have. So I say safely with some layering down to freezing. I wear it a little below. I have other guys, Keith Rutt from Lancaster. He wore it in 5-degree weather. He believed in it that much in flintlock season here. Um, but I don't advertise it as that. I pretty much say it's good with good layering down to about freezing. But if it's really, really windy, you're going to want something that cuts the wind a little bit underneath. But other than that, it covers archery season down to right as you're getting around that freezing temperature. But beyond that can be a little less comfortable.
Yeah, yeah, you don't want to get out there and get too cold because then it kind of makes a miserable hunt.
Yeah, I
Do-
mean that's why I got that Milwaukee heater vest. I bought that for when I went on a Saskatchewan hunt, and our temperatures were between 3 and 10 degrees, and hunting in a pop-up blind every day from before the sun come up to after the sun went down. So that Milwaukee heater vest was a lifeline for
Oh
sure.
yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
know it was making that. You don't realize the first day I didn't think, oh, I don't think this is making that much of a difference until the battery runs out, and then you realize it was making a pretty big difference.
yeah,
Because it didn't,
yeah.
it's not like it was heating me up, but I wasn't getting cold. But then once the battery died, I'm like, oh, I'm starting to get a little chilled now. Sure.
Well, hey, it's been really great talking to you, and we'll have to do this again.
Yeah, I
Um,
appreciate meeting you. I appreciate the opportunity. Um, we covered a wide range of topics. We went on some side tangents there from time to time, but I really
yeah,
enjoyed the
that's okay.
conversation. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If somebody thinks they're just getting 2 hours of nothing but archery, they're getting a little more than that.
Yeah.
This one. So, but I
Well,
really appreciate
those that listen to my podcast know that we get off on tangents.
it.
It's just we generally start talking archery, but where we end up, yeah, it's all fair game. We go any direction. So
Yeah, I think the other thing that I think people relate to me with starting this company is, you know, I'm not a trophy hunter. I'm not a celebrity hunter. I'm just a regular guy. I'm an average success hunter. Um, you know, I I I did this because I kind of had an idea and a dream that we could do something different, had a vision of what we could do with this camo and how it might help. And I'm just, doing the grind. And I'm not depending upon the fact that, I'm already a celebrity or had a lot of backing or a lot of that I was already well known or anything like that. I don't have any celebrities that wear it. Although we have a country music star that's wearing it, country music guy that I think is on his way up to becoming a star, so that's kind of cool. But Cody Christian is a country music guy making his way up in the business. But this is just right now. It's just hard work and um, the help of a lot of friends that's really helping make this a reality and hope to make that turning and get a lot more folks out there experiencing what hunting is like with WTF Camo.
And with that, I want to thank everybody for listening or watching this far. Just remember, you can listen to this on Spotify and wherever else you get your podcasts, as well as on Audible. You can watch the video on my YouTube channel. You're going to learn to fix it yourself. Learn to fix it yourself. There we go. Or you can go out to the Facebook group, Arch Talk 101, and you can watch it there. Always get a hold of us. Get a hold of me if you have any questions. We can send you to Tim or get a hold of Tim. I'll leave links in the description for the stuff we talked about. Make it easier to find them. And thanks for watching. My name is Roy Canterbury. I've been your host on Arch Talk 101. And Tim has been a great guest. We've had some good conversations and we learned a lot about a camo and how deer see camo patterns and colors. So that's been really, really great. And we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks
Thanks
for
a
being
lot,
on the
Roy.
show, Tim.
Take care. Have a good one.